Hello, everybody, and welcome back, of course, to another episode of the Sports Plug. While we wrap up Week 9 of the NFL season, I have my very special co-host, Ishmael Siryon, joining us, of course, here today. Before we move on with our weekly wrap-up, of course, I just want to give a shout-out to all the veterans. Tomorrow is Veterans Day, since we have our show on Tuesday. Just want to give an early shout out to all the veterans out there celebrating Veterans Day tomorrow. Make sure you go out and go get your free meal because I know my veterans will do that for sure. So,
For sure.
for sure. So, before we get into this week 9 wrap up ish, we are technically now, I said it last week, but now everybody has played 8 games. Some teams have played 9. We are officially now at the midway point of the NFL season. Before we get into the games, I just want to say one thing. I am very disappointed in Mike Evans. This was supposed to be a very great statistical year for Mike Evans, being able to play with Thomas Brady, right? Because years prior, he had Jameis, put up great numbers, but of course the team wasn't excelling the way that they wanted to. But Mike Evans was getting his targets, he was getting his catches, 1,000-yard receiving every season. Right now, he's on pace to miss that 1,000-yard mark and to actually break the tie that Randy Moss has with him, starting off their careers with 1,000-yard receiving. I want to say in the first 7 years of their NFL careers. So, with that being said, before we get into the weekly wrap up, do we see a second half surge from Mike Evans and the Bucks on that offense when it comes to getting him involved more instead of getting, because the last 5 weeks he's gotten between 4 to 10 targets in the last 5 weeks, so he's getting targeted. He's just not making these catches.
No, we will not see a surge in the second half from Mike Evans. I only say that because they just added Antonio Brown, who Tom Brady appears to have a pretty good relationship with him. And I think that the game on Sunday night is a big indication of kind of where they're moving forward. It looked like Tom Brady was kind of trying to force the ball to Antonio Brown in some cases. He was holding on to the ball a little bit longer. I think it's kind of has to do with the wealth of weapons. I don't know if it's a timing situation. I don't know what's going on. They've had a lot of people out. Chris Godwin was out for a while. Mike Evans himself was out for a little while. They've had a lot of injuries this year. And, they're getting everybody back together. Obviously, they're going to have to work on timing, get used to playing with each other again in order to really capitalize on some of this talent they have. But I don't think that you're going to see a second half surge from him only because of the wealth of weapons that Tom Brady has at his disposal. You got Mike Evans, you got Chris Godwin, you got Rob Gronkowski, you got Ronald Jones out the backfield, you got Antonio Brown now. There's so many people, not to mention who's the dude that had a big catch for them the week before.
You talking about the slot wide receiver? I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but yeah, I know you're talking about.
But yeah, so there's so many players that they have to get the ball to. I just don't see Mike Evans reaching the numbers that he had in past years when Jameis Winston was there.
Yeah, I definitely agree on that. Especially with the wealth of weapons, like you said, it's a great way to put it because that's pretty much what it is. Everybody has to get the ball to feel like they are involved in the offense. We played football before. We played wide receiver. We know how it is as a wide receiver. When you start running 7, 8, 9, 10 routes and you don't get the ball, you're not going to run that 11 route as hard because you feel like, oh, I'm not going to get the ball. You're not going to run off a corner because you just like, man, I ain't going to get the ball. So that messes with a wide receiver's psyche. So if you don't get the ball in the first quarter, then all of a sudden you get it in the fourth quarter. You're not as sharp catching the ball, even though that's something you're supposed to do. You're supposed to catch the ball no matter when you're getting the ball thrown to you, but you're supposed to, of course, catch the ball no matter what. But it's just one of those things where the rhythm, I think it's the rhythm that that has not been able to get built with Mike Evans and Tom Brady, either because of Corona, lack of training camp, lack of course, the preseason games. Maybe that's something that has something to do with that, but we have to wait and see. Shout out to Greg checking out on YouTube. He says, too many weapons on the Bucs right now. Mike Evans is going to continue to decline stat-wise this season. And also, he said his name is Scotty Miller. Appreciate that when it comes to the slot receiver out in Tampa. Appreciate that. So, like I said, let's go ahead and get into the first game, Thursday Night Football, Packers and 49ers. This was pretty much a helmet game when it comes to just like the Steelers and Cowboys game. You see the helmets and you're thinking it's going to be a great game. This wasn't one of them. Aaron Rodgers did what he does best, of course, took care of his childhood team growing up and put it to the 49ers wing. But let's be real, though. At the end of the day, the 49ers are a wounded duck for the rest of the season. For the rest of the season with all the injuries they have. Yeah, with all the injuries that they have. And let's be real. I mean, they are very competitive even with all the injuries that they have. And I do like seeing the 49ers play hard together on all sides of the ball, even though they have all these missing pieces.
Yeah. I mean, it's good to see how hard they play, how they play for each other, even with all the injuries that they have, even with, the people who opted out before the season started. The way they have played, it has been really a testament to that franchise, to that coaching staff, to that team, and just being able to face the adversity and keep going. Now, are they going to be able to make the playoffs? Of course not. I just don't think it's going to happen. Too many injuries. The NFC is too strong this year. But it was nice to see. They even kind of tried to compete a little bit in this game, but Aaron Rodgers was too much for them. With the return of Aaron Jones in the backfield, I mean, the Packers looked really good. They looked like the team that we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season when they came out hot. And hopefully they continue this in this form. Now, will they? That's still something to be seen because they haven't been as consistent this year, and that's part of the problem. And especially that defense. That defense did pretty well against a wounded duck, like you said, in the 49ers. But are they going to be able to do the same against some of these top teams?
Yeah, and that's the real thing is to see. Right now, the Packers are 6-2. We have to, again, wait and see how the second half looks because weather will, of course, play a factor in some of these games, like they play in Lambeau Field. So it's going to be very interesting to see the back half. We got for the Packers, they have to watch out for the Vikings. I don't think the Vikings will catch them in the division, but they are catching momentum with Dalvin Cook and trying to make a second half push as well in the NFC North Division. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next game. Another wounded duck type of game. This is two teams that's coming into this game desperately needing a win with Giants and the Washington football team. I picked the Washington football team to win this game because I have zero faith in the Giants. The Giants squeak out a 3-point win against the Washington football team. And the crazy thing about it, both of them are still in the running to win this division. Every week, we still talk about the NFC least, and every team still has an opportunity to win this division.
I was just about to say to you, can we just skip all the NFC East teams from now on? Like, I don't even want to talk about this division. They are horrible.
Oh my God!
How can a team that's 2-7 or 2-6 still be in contention to make the playoffs? Like, this is sad. This year, watching the NFC East has just been torture because all four of the teams are horrible. They're bad teams. They don't execute. They play down to the competition level. And I'm speaking clearly about the Eagles, who I think of the four teams, they're the best team, but that doesn't say much
at all.
I mean, I would prefer to just skip over them every week. I just don't even want to talk about them. I don't think whatever team makes it out of NFC East, I don't even think they win the playoff game. And if they do, I'll be shocked. But the Eagles possibly could shock somebody, maybe, if they work on it in the second half. But right now, this division is a sad, sad division. I didn't even watch this game. The Giants and the Redskins, I wasn't trying to watch it because I knew what kind of game it was going to be. Might as well watch some Pee Wee football while you're at it.
Now we watching Pee Wee football in Texas. We watching it in Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri. What we watching?
Like Pee Wee football in like Alaska or something.
All right. I might have to take your advice when it comes to not talking about these NFC East teams anymore, because it is just downright pitiful and horrible, because we have to watch this disgrace of football in this division every week. We are forced to like what was the movie Bird with the
Oh
blindfold
yeah, yeah.
Bird dang, I
I
can't
forgot
remember
what
it
it's
was
called,
Sandra
but yeah,
Bullock,
with
and the
Sandra Bullock
dude
in it,
and the
and
dude
then they're
had to open
blindfolded.
the eyes or whatnot. That's what it's like having to watch these games, because
Oh,
oh my goodness. But again, let's move on, because I'm tired of wasting time with these teams. So let's hop on to an even better team, the Detroit Lions.
oh
You
my.
love how we just roll right into that, right? So the Detroit Lions versus the Minnesota Vikings. This is a game. Going into the game, I thought, hey, maybe the Lions might pull out this victory, because maybe some people might have a little bit of faith in Lions, like I still
No.
don't do. But I went ahead and picked them because it's a divisional game. Who knows what could happen? The Vikings tore it up. Dalvin Cook, second game with 150 yards rushing. 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns in 2 consecutive games. So
Yep.
moving forward with the Vikings, like I said previously, do we see a second half surge where all of a sudden they're winning 5 games, and that's in that second half, and all of a sudden they're 8, 9, 10, 9 wins, to where they maybe might get a 7th playoff spot in the NFC?
So the only reason why I'll say that they potentially could make the playoffs and we might see a second half surge is just like I always say with the Houston Oilers, about it becoming the winter time, and we're starting to see teams that run the ball being more successful, because this is the time of year where if you got a good running game, you definitely can make it happen. The Vikings got the league's leading rusher in Dalvin Cook, and to me, it's sad that they are 3-5 right now. When you have the league's leading rusher, because you would expect Kirk Cousins, who nobody expects him to be, a world beater. Nobody's expecting him to go out there and win the games for the Vikings. So when you got the league's leading rusher, you would expect that there wouldn't be any pressure on you to go out there and make these like great plays. Like all you got to do is manage the game, and you should be able to come out with the victory. And for them to be 3-5, I mean, it just speaks to the level of inconsistent play from Kirk Cousins. And I think that's the one caveat that you got to say, like, they may not have a second half surge because Kirk Cousins is just not playing well enough to help them win these games when they got the league's leading rusher there.
I mean, let's be real though. Is when Minnesota paid him that money, we were all texting,
Oh
tweeting,
yeah,
all that stuff. Like, what the hell is going on? Why Minnesota doing this, that, and the third? But they felt like that was their guy.
they did.
I think Minnesota fans and even the players. I mean, we saw with Diggs. Diggs got up out of there. I think a lot of people knew that Kirk Cousins is not this guy that y'all want him to be. He is not Captain America. A lot of people think that he is this savior, and he's never been that guy. I mean, going back to Michigan State. So what I'm trying to understand is you pay a guy like that type of money, we are expecting you to have that second half type of surge, correct? Because if we pay you that type of money, we need you to step up when it's time to step up, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. They want him to do that.
So, I'll say this, as a Minnesota organization, the second half, for not just mainly for Kirk Cousins, but also for the team, will help the management group in the Vikings organization figure out where they go in the future with this team. That's what I think. Yeah. So we'll definitely, of course, be checking in on the Vikings and see what happens with them. Panthers versus Chiefs. Teddy Two Gloves out here, balling as always, but just was not enough for the Super Bowl defending champions,
Man,
Kansas City Chiefs. At one point in time, the Panthers did have the lead, and they looked like they might be able to pull off the upset against Kansas City, but Kansas City did what they do best, turn it on and turn it up when it's time to do it, and they went ahead and, of course, took care of the Panthers, putting their record to 8-1 and looking like the AFC favorites at the moment. Is there anything from that game that you took away, Ish, being a Chiefs fan?
I mean, one of the things I did take away from the Panther side is like, man, you just got to think to yourself, and I think kind of like with the 49ers, you just got to think to yourself, like, if we had Christian McCaffrey, for the rest of this year, do we win some of these games that were really close, that we lose them in the last drive of the game or whatever? Because the Panthers came out and they played like the team that I had been hyping them up to be a couple weeks ago and saying like, hey, this team possibly could compete for the NFC South. And then they went out last week and didn't perform. And you were like, well, okay, they're probably out of the running. And then they come into Kansas City against a Super Bowl favorite team, AFC favorite team, and they give them a run for their money. I was surprised. I didn't think they were going to win the game because I believe in the Chiefs, but I was surprised at how well they played. I was surprised at how well Teddy Bridgewater played. Christian McCaffrey again is hurt. They said something with his shoulder or his rib, so that's concerning from that side standpoint, because they may not be able to make that second half surge for the Panthers. But from a Chiefs standpoint and from a fan of Kansas City Chiefs, I would say that I love games like this for the Chiefs as early as it is in the season. The reason why I say that is when you get to the playoffs, you're going to have a lot tighter games. You're going to have to you're going to have to find a way to win, right? And you want your team to be ready to do that. You want your team ready to face adversity, ready to, make those kind of runs late in the game. And for them to get this game now in November, I like to see that, because I know when it comes time in January and February, they're going to be ready to play those games tight when the Oilers come knocking, or when the Ravens come knocking, or the Steelers, who are still undefeated. So from a Chiefs standpoint, we love to see it. Patrick Mahomes, throwing the ball all over the place again. Le'Veon Bell, like I said before, we didn't need him to come in and do anything. So the fact that he's not doing anything and producing doesn't harm us at all, because Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not missing a beat anyway.
Yeah, you can try and brush off that whole Le'Veon Bell ain't doing nothing on the run. You can do it all you want to. Best believe I'm watching. Best believe I'm watching, because the carries ain't matching up with the production, all right?
It doesn't matter.
All right, we going to see.
We didn't need him. He's icing on top of the cake. If he doesn't perform, okay. If he doesn't perform, oh well.
Okay. We gonna wait and see during playoff time, and I'm happy that you brought up the whole Christian McCaffrey coming back for this game. This is his first time coming back since his injury. And like you said, unfortunately, he got hurt again during this game, to where his shoulder is hurt and he might not even be able to be ready for next week. Now, as a general manager that just put all this money into a Christian McCaffrey, now we get into the notion of, do we just go ahead and shut him down for the season and get ready for next year?
I like what you're thinking from that standpoint, as far as, we invested this money in him. Should we shut him down and just allow him to get healthy, right? Don't hurt him for the long term.
And he's a running back. It's not like he's a quarterback or a DB or something like that. He's going to most likely get hit on every play.
Well, the problem I have with that is exactly what you just alluded to. He's a running back who is going to get hit pretty much on every play. And also what they ask from him is, it's not like you shutting him down this year is going to help him any next year, because you ask him to do all of those things. You ask him to run the ball so many times. You throw the ball to him out of the backfield so many times. Like, you are using him to this point where he's going to break down. I think it's a product of the environment as far as what they ask Christian McCaffrey to do, rather than Christian McCaffrey having a durability problem on his own.
No, I definitely agree. And that's why a lot of NFL general managers are very scared to give running backs a lot of money, just because of the history of giving a running back money and either injuries or they just don't run as hard anymore. I never worried about Christian McCaffrey taking off a play, but injuries are a concern, as we see right now, and you do not want to become a running back that is getting hurt every 3 or 4 games, and you're not doing, the best running backs, as we see, Frank Gore don't look pretty, but he's been around for 17 years, and you look at the numbers; they are consistent. He might not be a flashy guy like an Adrian Peterson, but both of those guys are going to the Hall of Fame for the same reason, but for different reasons.
And I would argue they're built different than Christian McCaffrey.
That too,
right? That's part of the problem. You can't. use Christian McCaffrey in the way you're using him when he's not built like some of these guys you're mentioning. It's rough for him in Carolina. I think they need like a second back to kind of help out with that, right? Like, not that because his production isn't good, but because if you want him to last this contract that you gave him, if you want him to have the kind of impact that you're hoping that he'll have for your team, I think you got to have somebody there that complements him and that you trust in, that you're going to be able to have a 1-2 punch. I think that Christian McCaffrey is not built to take the kind of punishment that they're putting on him in Carolina. It's just crazy to me. And I think this year is a product of that, just years of being constantly hit over and over and over again. They say it all the time about quarterbacks, but it's funny, you don't mention it when you talk about guys like Christian McCaffrey, when you talk about guys like Alvin Kamara, who last year was hurt and struggled with injuries. Like, these guys are constantly getting beat up, and they're not built like a Frank Gore or like a Adrian Peterson,
Derrick Henry.
So It's like, at some point, and I think New Orleans has done a pretty good job of getting a second guy with Latavius Murray for Alvin Kamara, but I think Carolina needs to do that as well. They need to figure that out.
No, I definitely agree, and that's something, again, the Panthers are going to have to figure out in the offseason if they want to be a competitive team moving forward, which I think they can. I really do think that they can. We've seen in previous years with this organization, a lot of people got to remember, this is a franchise that was born in '96, and they've been able to go to 2 Super Bowls. Yep. We have franchises like myself as a Tennessee Titans fan, been in only 1 Super Bowl, been around since 1960. So we can't say for the Panthers it's not impossible, because it is possible. We just have to wait and see how they move around. So be very interested to see how the Panthers move forward. All right, Bears versus Titans, of course, just brought up my Titans. This game was closer than it needed to be. Throughout the whole game, if you watch the game, the Titans actually held the Bears to 0 points going into that fourth quarter. Titans ended up giving 17 in the quarter, which I was not too thrilled about. Titans ended up winning the game 24-17, and the big matchup is this Thursday for the Titans playing against the Colts on Thursday Night Football. And that is, you can make it face all you want to. That's a big test for both teams, because we got to remember.
Game, but
I'm just saying, we got to remember the Titans play the Colts 2 times in 3 weeks. Yep. So what I'm saying is, this is a short week. Both teams are a little tired, a little beat up. Going into this game is a very, very big must-win game for both teams. But guess what? Even if no matter who wins, the division is still up for grabs in 2 weeks when they play again. So the season isn't over with, but it's going to be a lot of emotions going on for the Titans and for the Colts fan base, the organization, all that over the next month, because it's going to be a lot of this and that. First, second. So we have to wait and see how the Titans move forward with this upcoming game, because this is a game that people will expect the Titans to win. The Bears are who the Bears are. They still, like we talked about this whole season, the ugliest 5-win team so far in this season. And the Titans, they have to show to everybody on Thursday Night Football, another national televised game, that they are serious when it comes to being an AFC contender against the Steelers or the Chiefs.
Well, I mean, you say it's a big game, and it is a big game because it's a division game. They play each other twice in 3 weeks, like you said. They're used to each other, but I still believe in the Oilers. My belief in them has not wavered all season. It did not waver with this game. You said it was close. I'm a little disappointed in how many points the Bears scored, but then again, we both know that the Oilers defense has not been that stout this year. So, I'm not as shocked that they scored some points. I'm more encouraged by the way their offense played and how they were able to beat this Bears defense that has been very tough all year. To score 24 points on them, I feel good about that. I feel good about the Oilers moving forward. I do think that Thursday night is a statement game for whoever wins that game. It's a statement game. Now, for the Colts, we're going to get into that in a little bit, but I don't think that they're going to be able to hang with this team long term. And I think the Oilers are still my pick to win the AFC South. They're going to do what they have to do. And I am excited about them going into the playoffs. I think that they are a team to, again, watch out for.
And let's also not forget about the defensive pickup. The Titans finally got Desmond King from the Chargers. Made an impact play, first game of his Titans career with a scoop and score for the Titans, and they made a funny joke on social media. They said Desmond King has more touchdowns than he does practices for the Tennessee Titans. So,
yep.
Hey, that's how we like to do it out here, baby. Come out onto the team and make an impact, baby. That's how we like it. So
talk about impact transaction.
Exactly, you ain't lying on that one. So another AFC South foe matchup: Texans versus Jacksonville. Now, one thing I will say about this, Ishmael. These are one of those times in my life where I despise living in Houston, Texas. They made us watch this pitiful of a game on CBS when they had other games on CBS and Fox that we could have watched, that I probably should have watched and wanted to watch, but I couldn't because I had to live in Houston, Texas and watch this trash of performance. Now, I'm not going to lie. The first 3 drives of the game, both these teams was scoring. It was no defense. I thought it was going to be a shootout at first. Then everything settled down a little bit. Of course, Texans did what they needed to do and win that game. Let's be real with both of these teams. They're done. I mean, the Texans 2-6, Jaguars 1-7. The Jaguars, I'd be honest with you, and I've said this since day one with Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is not their guy. They're moving forward. I don't think they are going to keep him. I think they are going to let him move on and be a backup quarterback for somebody else. And I think the Jags are just going, they have pretty much separated themselves from that 2017 Jaguars team that took them to an AFC Championship game against the Steelers. I think they are pretty much done, like I said, with that whole era of Jag football, and they're trying to start a whole new era.
Okay. I think that both these teams, like you said, are done. The Texans, this was a good win for them. They needed this win, but it was still an ugly win. Deshaun Watson has been the bright spot for the Texans all season.
The only spot.
The only spot for them, really.
Well, him and JJ.
JJ Watt. And JJ Watt has been doing a great job on defense. But the team around them is just terrible. That defense, man, we need to blow it up and do something about that, because just start from scratch.
Who's we? You a Texan fan now? That's what we're doing.
We live in Houston.
Who's we? No, I speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
So I think the Texans do need to blow that defense up. They need to start from scratch. I think that they may win a couple more games. They may shock some teams later on in the season, but they are done. They got to figure out how they're going to get this team better moving forward without any draft picks. The Jaguars, is the Gardner Minshew era over? Potentially. I think it depends on what draft pick they get and what quarterback is sitting there. I mean, if you're up there and you potentially can get a guy like Justin Fields who might be coming out, do you get him? I don't know. I mean, there are a couple of guys out there that, other than Trevor Lawrence, who's the prize this draft, I don't know that there's a quarterback that I'm really, really excited for. Justin Fields, I don't know how I feel about him in the NFL. So I think they might stick with Gardner Minshew for maybe another year or two, only out of necessity, because you could risk, like they did with Foles, try to bring a guy in free agency, pay him, and then it not work out, and people going to be asking for Gardner back. So I think they stick with him another year or two, and they just need to keep building. They got a great undrafted rookie running back that has, he's like what, the fourth in yards in the league or something. For
apparently he averages 15 yards a touch.
He is doing some good things for them. They've got a couple decent receivers around them. I think they just need more consistent quarterback play. They definitely need to do something about replacing those pieces they lost on the defensive side. And then you could see the Jaguars back to making a little bit of noise.
We'll see. Again, that little bit of noise next year, not this year. It ain't
definitely not this year.
Yeah, but I will say this as well. Shout out to JJ Watt.
Yep.
taking him 120 games to get to 100 sacks.
Yeah,
That put him in another elite category with DeMarcus Ware, Reggie White, and Bruce Smith when it comes to achieving that landmark.
most definitely.
And with JJ, we give JJ a little hard time, especially with his injuries over the last couple of years. But one thing you can say about JJ, he has cemented his place in Texans lore of being a great player for the Texans. Most likely, probably will be a Hall of Fame player and somebody that can. Well, the three defensive player of the years. That's what will help him get into the.
Well, no. I agree he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. I'm just shaking my head at another wasted talent
Yes,
with the
yes,
Houston Texans. I mean, Andre Johnson, they did the same thing. They wasted his career. Aaron Foster, they wasted his career. Now you got J.J. Watt, another player that wasting his career. And I think Deshaun Watson going to fall in that list based off of what they've done with the draft picks and everything. Another wasted career. I mean, really, Houston, if we're just being honest, is the place where you're a great player and your career just
goes to die.
It just dies.
But at least you get nice weather and you make a decent amount of money compared to going to Cleveland. Cleveland, the Jets, that's where your career goes to die.
Yeah, I'd rather be in Houston and have my career die than be in Cleveland and have my career die.
Oh yeah, and to wrap up this topic this game to go on to the next one, with the Texans, we know how good they are with the pieces that they have. The question is, like I said, somebody like J.J. Watt, to be able to get everything back that you weren't able to get on the field, like a Super Bowl ring, multiple playoff appearances. Do you decide to join the Texans front office? Do you decide to be a part of the rebuild of what the Texans organization could be? And with somebody like a J.J. Watt, that's a great name, great face, to be able to help build that.
I mean, it's up to JJ. I would respect him if he decided to do that, but at the same time, I wouldn't hold it against him if he didn't want to do that because, honestly, this organization wasted your career. They made bad move after bad move. Cal McNair didn't step in when Bill O'Brien was making all these terrible decisions as a GM. I mean, as a coach, sure, we can say he was a pretty good coach. He was winning games. He did things with lesser talent than other coaches. But as a GM, he completely blew this team up. And I think that I would not blame JJ Watt if he didn't want to be associated with the organization after, he done. I think he was expecting to be traded at the trade deadline, did not get traded. Will Fuller was expecting to be traded, was not traded. So it's interesting the decisions that have been made in this organization. I think there was a report they signed Josh McCown or something.
As a backup quarterback to Deshaun Watson. Yeah.
What are these decisions that are being made?
Hey, you know how it is. Veteran leadership to help mold Deshaun Watson into a great quarterback.
Honestly, this organization is just a hot mess. To be completely honest, it's a hot mess. Decisions have been made, since the inception of the organization that are just head scratching, and it looks like it just continues.
Yep, and it ain't gonna change. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the Ravens versus Colts, which was, I don't know about you, was to me definitely a game to check out because I wanted to see this measuring stick on both teams. And the Colts did not impress me at all. I learned a lot more from the Ravens than we did from the Colts. And again, going into Thursday night, like I talked about with the Titans, depending on what Colts team we see on Thursday, man, this ship can sink real quick. Phillip Rivers, I don't know if you've seen the play where it was an interception and he was trying to make that tackle, but it looked like old man Rivers all over again, just falling all over the place. Couldn't even make the tackle. He was on the ground trying to make a tackle like this. And again, it just, for me, we know Phillip Rivers is that regular season guy. We know he can bounce back. We know he can shake off a bad game and have a 5-touchdown game against us on Thursday. We know that. But the question marks still remain for Phillip Rivers and also Lamar Jackson is, can you do this in the playoffs? Can y'all make an effort to win big games in the playoffs?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree. We learned more about the Ravens than we did about the Colts. To me, the Colts are still they're still an enigma out there. I mean, we just don't know about them yet. I think this was really their first real big test and big game for them in the season, and they failed. Lamar Jackson, I still have questions about him. He threw for 170 yards, but no touchdowns, and I don't feel like he's still getting the receivers involved like he needs to. But the run game was able to do what it needed to do. Of course, he was able to run the ball. But the question still remains for both of these teams. So the Colts, are they going to be able to get past the Oilers? I don't think so, like I've already stated. And the Ravens, are they going to be able to compete in the playoff when it comes to playoff time? And is Lamar going to be able to make those plays that are going to push them over the hump? And there was no evidence of that in this game. He showed that he can win a game that is a big game, but he didn't prove that with the other things that we needed to see from him. Like, we needed to see him get the receivers more involved. As the season goes on, we need to see him get the receivers more involved, because if he's not, then, I mean, it's going to be more the same when it comes playoff time. They're going to face a team like the Steelers or the Chiefs or the Oilers, and they're going to lose because he's not going to be able to make those plays that he needs to make when the defense decides, you know what? We're going to put a spy on you. We're going to hope the spy somehow distracts you, or we're going to blitz you, make the pressure get to you, and you're going to have to make the play in the pocket. And is he going to be able to make that play? This game didn't convince me of that yet. So we're still watching for that.
No, I agree. And if you look at the highlights of that Ravens-Colts game, they were running highlights from Lamar, which is, again, something that, and people can get mad at me all they want to, but I'm tired of seeing Lamar Jackson running highlights. I'm tired of it. Like, I really am, because, again, if this is a quarterback, everybody wants us to make him feel like he's a quarterback, and we need to talk about him like a quarterback. Okay, do quarterback things then. Throw the ball from the pocket. I'm not telling you not to run the ball, but you can slide out. You can of course extend the play by shuffling your feet and still staying, of course, behind the line of scrimmage to make a throw. But we all know, watching Lamar Jackson, it is one read, maybe two, run. If that second read is not there, run. Like, and you don't see that from Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers got a little motor on him, but they stay in the pocket because Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is, again, the bad toddler that you can't whoop, and he chooses the right times to run. We saw that with Tua as well. We'll get into that game as well, but with Lamar, we know he's a generational talent. We know he is this generation of Michael Vick, but we also, if we know about history, we know Michael Vick didn't win anything. So if you want to put him in Michael Vick, that's fine, but you also got to be ready for what's not going to happen, which is a championship could not happen. He can win MVP. That's fine. He can do all these great things. He's right now the number one when it comes to the best quarterback start in 30 games, 25-5. And again, that is great, but Patrick Mahomes has a Super Bowl. You know, some of these guys that are around when you came out have achieved a little bit more than you, so the expectations are a little bit higher for anybody else. If this was Josh Allen that did what Lamar Jackson did, they'll be trying to make it seem like he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and we understand that. It has nothing to do with a race thing. It has everything to do with expectations thing. When I'm talking about out in Buffalo, they need another savior like a Jim Kelly, when Jim Kelly was out there playing them, taking them to 4 Super Bowls, and it went any. But they loved some Jim Kelly, and they loved the Buffalo Bills just for taking them to the Super Bowl. So with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, we just need you to at least get to an AFC Championship game first. I'm sorry, win a playoff game first. Win a playoff game first, AFC Championship game. Then after that, we can get off Lamar's back for at least a year or two. At least, just saying.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just at least a year. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next topic. Let's finish this up. Seahawks and Bills. This was the game of the watching week when it comes to making sure you keep your peepers on this game. And I was correct. Not with my pick, because I picked the Seahawks. But I was correct. I was correct when it comes to this game surprising the average NFL watcher because a lot of people probably expected Russ to come in here and cook with DK Metcalf, with that defense, this, that, and the third. But I feel like this was a game that Josh Allen came out to prove and to show folks, look, I can ball too. But what I have in question is with the Bills moving forward. Great win, but can we do this consistently
Man,
and not fall off to a bad team that can mess up the rest of the season for y'all? So if we are taking the Bills seriously, this is a great win for them to have. We need y'all to have more of these going into the AFC playoff picture.
man, X, you remember a couple weeks ago we were talking about like, oh, the Bills, they could be real, but they got to get past the Patriots.
Yep.
Really, no, the Bills just need to get past themselves. Like,
Yep.
if they're gonna play consistent, I think they got this division pretty much in the bag. Now, Tua may have something to say about that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Josh Allen, he can ball with pretty much any of them out there. He has proven that he is a gunslinger. He can get the ball out there. He can, make some plays. The problem is he doesn't do it consistently, and it's just like my goodness. Like when you're hot, and they proved that this week when they played the Seahawks. Some people may be surprised. I am not, because they have proven that they can score some points. When they are ready to score points, they can score those points. Now, the problem that they're going to have is, again, that consistency. They've got to be consistent. They've got to do it at the right times against the right team. This was a good example of, doing it at the right time. But moving forward, we got to see it. We got to see more of it, because in order for you to be taken seriously, in the playoffs, or even as a contender or the leader of this division, you're going to have to do it consistently. And that's just the key for them. But I was not surprised by this. I thought that the Bills, I know that the Bills are kind of like that gotcha kind of team, right?
Yeah, you ain't lying.
1 week they may be like, oh no, we're not gonna play any games, and then the next week the team come into Buffalo and gotcha. They're gonna surprise you. Russ and the Seahawks, I didn't think they played poorly. I mean, they scored 34 points. The defense has been, and I think that's one of the things that gets glossed over with the Seahawks. Their defense is really good, right? But their defense is also inconsistent in the situation as far as like, they do not have that same defense when they were back making the Super Bowl, a couple years in a row, right? They've got a decent defense, but they don't have that great defense, right? And I think that's one of the things that, because of the play of Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, people have kind of glossed over. People aren't really talking about, but this was an example right here. Are the Seahawks going to be able to, win these shootouts if it comes to that against some of the other top teams?
Well, I feel like they would definitely be able to win the shootouts because of the quarterback that they have. Mm-hmm. The real question is, will your defense be able to correct some of these sloppy things moving into the postseason? Because if we think about the Seahawks in years prior, we think about the LOB defense, we think about the players that they have on each level of the defense, but this year, this is the transition from just like when the Steelers with Big Ben it was a young Big Ben. He was with the Steelers. They had the great defense, and then Big Ben became the guy, and now everything was molded into the offense for Big Ben. And now it's like, okay, well, since you're so good, you carry us. Now we have a little bit of a lacking defense, but since you're so good, you can carry us through. I think that's what's going on in Seattle as well. We've never seen in Seattle before where they have, two legit wide receivers and a pretty decent running back. He's not Marshawn Lynch, but a pretty decent running back, and a hellified quarterback that can make everybody around him that much better, to where they can kind of take off a player or two on defensive side, because they know that Russell Wilson will help us win a game. This was not one of those type of games. Prior to this game, they were actually 10-0, traveling from the West to the East Coast to play East Coast opponents. So that's another reason why I went ahead and stuck with Seahawks, because when it comes to history, hey, you got to go with history from time to time. But these were one of those these were one of these situations where I think the Bills, we found out a lot about the Bills this week. Keep it up, be consistent, and we'll see what happens in week 14, 15, right?
Yep.
All right, Broncos versus Falcons. Wasn't a pretty game. Mr. Drew Lock came back. Mr. Buzz Lightyear, pew, pew. I ain't gonna lie, I love the celebration. Surprisingly, though, I went ahead and picked the Falcons. I was expecting for my Falcons to screw it up again, but they did not. And looks like Matty Ice getting a little bit of a rhythm going again in the second half of the season. We got anything? We have any expectations for the Falcons in the second half of the season? Maybe win 4 or 5? Nope, nothing.
No.
All right.
I have no expectations for the Falcons. I have no expectations for the Broncos. I think both teams are just teams out there trying to buy some wins. Maybe get some good experience for their players. But I don't have any expectations for either side.
I definitely respect that. I definitely understand that. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next game because that one was not that great. So Raiders versus Chargers, battle of used to be L.A. Raiders used to be in L.A., Chargers now in L.A. Raiders been all around that West Coast. Now, of course, are in Vegas. If you are in Vegas, please go make sure you check out the Death Star, a.k.a. the Raiders' new home. The Chargers, man, another week. Another last play loss, and all of their games so far have been one possession games. One possession games. That is crazy to think of, and it also hurts because when your record is 2-6, and every game is by one score, you either could be 6-2, it could be 3-3. I'm sorry, 4-4. You could be a lot of different things, but right now your record is what your record is, and you are 2-6, and that's what scares me about Anthony Lynn moving forward. And we talked about this before. I mean, you're making these faces, but I mean, what happens if they go 3-13? What happens if they go 4-12? I mean, do they seriously keep at the? I hope they do.
They should,
but we have to wait and see.
So let me say this. If you are a Chargers fan, you have all the reasons to be encouraged about the fact that your team this season has lost all their games one possession. The reason why I say that is because you're starting a rookie quarterback that you weren't expecting to have to start as early as he did. Now, there was debate of whether or not he was going to take over from Tyrod Taylor, in the middle of the season or whatnot. But he definitely was thrust in before you expected him to be thrust in, right? I think that with the trade that they made to the Tennessee Titans, they kind of were already announcing to the fan base and to everybody like, hey, guys, we need a year. Give us this time. And when we come back next year, we'll be ready to go. Also, they're a team that's still learning to win, right? And I think that's why you got so many games that they've lost with one possession, because they're still learning to close those games out, learning to win these games. They're building that identity towards that, right? And I think it would be a big mistake if you were to get rid of Anthony Lynn after this season, only because I don't care what the record ends with. They could lose the remaining games and be 2-14. He is building that identity for them, and he's building them into a team that's going to be able to compete. I think you give them this year, you give him a year with Justin Herbert, being the starter full time, learning how to win these games and drive and lead a team. And then next season, you can kind of start to say like, all right, if we don't see a good improvement, then Anthony Lynn, we might have to get rid of you. But I think next year you're going to see a better team. I think with them losing these close games, next year they're going to be ready to go. They're going to know how to play in these games. They're going to be used to playing in these games. You're going to have an experienced starter in Justin Herbert. You're going to have a draft where you're going to be able to get some more players in. Maybe you strengthen up the defense a little bit. You get him one or two more weapons on the offensive side. And you could be talking about a totally different situation in the AFC West, where the Chargers are sitting up top there with Kansas City, and you could have Las Vegas and Denver still looking from the outside in. So we'll see. But I think you give them this year, and then you wait and see.
No, I definitely agree. And the thing about that is, with the Chargers, I mean, even with the Raiders too, you're in LA. You have. They have plenty of cap room, and that is a city that attracts plenty of athletes to where you don't have to worry about not getting free agents. It's now you have your franchise quarterback, you have a pretty good coach. Now it's time to build, right? And I agree on everything that you're saying. I mean, if the Chargers find a way to get a piece here and there that we don't expect them to get in the off season, we might look at the Chargers a little bit differently moving into next year. All right, Steelers Cowboys. Like I said before, this was definitely that helmet game because going into this game, you pretty much knew what it was. But the Steelers played a little down to their competition. But from the quotes that I've heard from Big Ben, he said that, hey, this was the toughest defensive line that we played all season. They wanted to come out here and show people that they weren't punks, right? And that they can play with the Steelers. Just don't have enough talent at the time to beat the Steelers. Just to also give everybody some news out there that have not heard, Big Ben has actually been placed on COVID-19 list along with 4 other players from the Steelers. It's going to be very interesting to see moving forward how the Steelers have to adjust to that. I'm assuming he will be out for this upcoming game. So that undefeated streak is definitely in jeopardy at the moment.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that he misses the game. I think he's got enough time that he might be able to get back in time. Either way, the Steelers have been playing well enough that I think that it's not that big a deal for them. It may be a big deal as far as like bye week. When you start talking about the bye week, you versus Kansas City, you lose a game. It kind of makes that tricky. So I don't know. I really wasn't feeling this game. Garrett Gilbert somehow came out and played better than people expected.
You want to know who I compare Garrett Gilbert to?
Who?
He is this generation Jason Garrett.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
So in 10 years, don't be surprised if Garrett Gilbert is the new head coach for the Dallas Cowboys.
I wouldn't be surprised at all. But yeah, the Steelers kind of played down to the level of their competition, but they still found a way to win at the end of the day. So
and that's all that matters.
I'm not concerned. I think that for the Cowboys fans, this is nothing to be excited about. Y'all still not gonna do anything. So any Cowboy fan that was like, "Oh, look, we almost beat the Steelers,"
it doesn't matter because almost only counted horseshoes and hand grenades, baby.
Yeah, nothing's gonna change from this.
All right, so as we can see on the bottom, you see some of the standings for both of those divisions. Let's go ahead and move on to one of the most exciting young quarterback games of this season. The Dolphins versus the Cardinals. Tua versus Kyler Murray. A rematch of BCS playoff game when Alabama played against Oklahoma. And, of course, Alabama won that game. And I'm pretty sure Kyler Murray wanted to get some revenge and was very close, as close to that missed field goal to almost lead them into overtime as the Cardinals had. And with this game-ish, are we sold on Tua?
I don't know yet. I think it's too soon to say, but I think that I will say that this rookie quarterback class, I'm again going to say it, this rookie quarterback class, they could go down as one of the best. The top 3 guys have come out, and all of them have been thrust into situations where they've played early and they've looked good. Now the wins haven't been there for all of them, but they have all played really well. They've all looked like that kind of guy that can lead a team. None of them have looked, scared. I gave Tua a hard time after last week's win because I was like, well, he didn't really throw the ball that much. He didn't do too much. He just kind of, helped his team.
Not mess up the game for him.
He managed the game. But this game, my boy came out and was cooking it up. This was definitely the game of the week for me. I'll have to give Tua the chef of the week for me because he 20 for 28, 248 yards, 2 touchdowns against a really good team in Arizona. I think that this looked good. I think that this may be an omen for the Buffalo Bills if they don't get their act together and consistently play well. I think that, Miami could give them a run for their money. I think Miami plays with the chip on their shoulder. They think that they're the underdogs. They think that people, are counting them out. And I think Brian Flores has really gotten that team to play above their level so far. And, man, People need to be on the lookout for this team. Now, even if they don't make noise this year, that's fine. To me, I think next year is the scary thing because of how many draft picks they got from the Texans. They're going to have a lot of first round picks. They're just adding talent to this team that's already playing well. They could make some noise next year.
Oh,
This
yeah.
year, I'm not expecting them to make a lot of noise, but I am surprised at where they are right now.
At the moment, they are number 7th on that wild card spot. So if the season was to end right now, they would be in the playoffs. So, but with the Dolphins as a whole, I mean, I've been very impressed with them. Because unfortunately they did start off a little shaky. They were 1-3. They've won 4 straight. First time they've won 4 games since 2016. So obviously there is a culture change that is going on in there. The thing is, like we talk about with the Bills, is can you be consistent? And also, we have to wait and see. Can the Dolphins catch the Bills and win this division? Because that would be very interesting as well if they are able to do that. I don't know just yet. We have to wait and see by Thanksgiving time frame. But the Dolphins, man, hey, be on a lookout for them because they can definitely do a little something over there.
Oh, one last thing before we move on. We gave the NFC West a lot of props last week. We're hyping them up about how good they were, how they looked like the best division. All 3 teams that were in action this week lost.
Yeah.
So,
hey, it happens. It happens.
It happens. But I'm just saying, all 3 teams lost, and they lost. I'm not saying that they lost like against terrible teams. They lost to like Arizona lost to a good Miami team, and it was a close
Seattle.
game.
Seattle lost to a good Buffalo team.
Buffalo team as well. And the 49ers are hobbled, but at the same time, that is something to note that all 3 of these teams that.
But also, wait, so they got 3 teams that are above 500 too. So
that is very true.
So I mean, at the end of the day, even though they did lost, they lost, they still are above 500. All right, let's go ahead and finish wrapping up this episode for today. Sunday Night Football, Saints versus Buccaneers. And if you are a Saints fan, you are very excited and very happy for this game. If you are a Tampa Bay / Tom Brady fan, you are a little salty and a little upset because that was not the greatest performance from Thomas Brady we have ever seen. That looks like a regular performance from Drew Brees. It didn't look like anything too spectacular, but from the Buccaneers to look so pitiful, not just on the offensive side of the ball, but also on the defense, because it's a team game. It wasn't just Tom Brady. Defense looked like shit too. What do we make of the Buccaneers after this game? Because let's remember, this is not just one of these games where it's just, it's a bad game, brush it away. This is the second time they played the Saints. They are now 0-2. The Saints pretty much, right now, they are number one in that division. Do the Saints take that division and just run with it and not even look back? Or do the Buccaneers have an opportunity to take back the division? We talked about before, Buccaneers have a lot of weapons, but do they have the chemistry the same way as Sean Payton and Drew Brees and those boys of Michael Thomas and Kamara? Do they have that?
Well, I mean, I think I kind of don't want to talk about this game because I do feel like it's just like, although they've lost twice to the Saints, and the Saints may have their number so far, I do think that it's only time will tell, to be honest, because this is the first week with Antonio Brown. You're getting back some of those weapons healthy that were hurt before. There's no excuse for how the defense played. So let me just say that there's no excuse for how the defense
at all.
Played. You can definitely make the case from a Saints standpoint, like, hey, we played the defense. It's not like the defense is really hurting, and we still put up 38 on that defense.
Now, I will say this, not to interrupt you. There were times that the offense did go for it on 4th down and gave really, really great field position to the Saints, and there ain't nothing that that's you putting the defense in a hard position to be able to stop a Saints offense on your own 30-yard line. Like it's hard to contain them to at least a field goal, let alone to a touchdown, let alone field goal. So
most definitely, I think that played into some of the score, and I mean obviously you got to look at that and take that into account. And that's another reason why you may, from a Buccaneer standpoint, say like, hey, hold down, slow it down, because we still got some time. We still got to get our guys used to playing with each other on the offensive side, and maybe if the offense plays a little bit better, the defense isn't put in some of these positions where they give up some of these scores because of the short field. So I'm gonna just I'm not gonna take this game as like, oh my gosh, the Buccaneers are done, I'm gonna take this game as okay. Saints play really well. The Saints are still a really good contender. I think that they're going to continue to play well. For the Buccaneers, we're gonna wait and see if the chemistry gets there. If they're able to utilize their weapons, I'm gonna be looking at Byron Leftwich to be, calling some plays and see how he adjusts to that butt whipping, because it is something to be said for a coach or a coordinator to how they respond to a situation where your offense doesn't score a touchdown. Like, how does Byron Leftwich respond? How does he game plan for the next team, or how does he even game plan if they see the Saints in the playoffs? That's something that is to be seen. So I'm just gonna wait and see. But I am going to say, for a Saints fan, you have a lot to be excited about, because if they're able to do this on the big stage against a team that's supposed to be a contender for the NFC title game, I think you should be excited about making it to the playoffs and how your team will respond when it gets down to that important time of, possibly pushing to make it to the Super Bowl.
Definitely 100% agree. Now, the only thing I will piggyback on to wrap up this topic, just like you said, that's the one thing that I'm waiting for. If they are able to see each other again in the playoffs, it is hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. So we have to wait and see how everything unfolds when the playoff gets here, because I don't think it's going to be an NFC championship game matchup between both of them, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they meet up somewhere in the playoffs to where everything that happened in the regular season, it didn't matter until right then and there. So we have to wait and see. Monday Night Football, Patriots versus Jets. One thing I will say about marketing from the ESPN and everybody else, y'all forced us real hard to make sure we watch this game, because this was one of those games, like we talked about before with everything else that went on this week. Yeah, was not trying to watch this game. Nobody's trying to watch this game. But like I told Ish before we hopped on the show today, this was actually a pretty decent game, because even though nobody really wanted to watch it, it ended up being a pretty decent game. The Patriots won on a last-second field goal against the Jets, which a lot of people probably feel like the Patriots shouldn't have to go to the last second to kick a field goal to beat the Jets. But we also have to remember that the Patriots are, missing a couple of guys. The Jets actually were getting some guys. I feel like Joe Flacco at the time is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. So I feel like the Jets weren't the same old Jets 0-8 going into this week, and the Patriots almost slipped up and lost this game.
I said last week, get Cam out of there. Y'all need to still get Cam out of there. I mean, he is able to hit Jacoby Myers, and that's probably a bright spot for them. But outside of that, they need to get Cam out of there.
Free Cam.
He's not the quarterback for the Patriots. That needs to be changed. The Jets, now the big question is, do you keep Sam Darnold? Do you get Trevor Lawrence? Because it looks like y'all going to have the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Wow. What a place to be in. I'm interested to see how that conversation goes. But to be honest, if it's just me, Sam Darnold need to go ahead and move to somewhere else. Y'all give him an opportunity to go rebuild his career somewhere else.
Maybe Sam Darnold comes to the Jags or something.
Maybe he can go to Jags. He can go to Patriots possibly. I mean, I don't know. In the division, Belichick has seen him a couple times. Maybe he, says, "Hey, I'll resurrect your career for you." But my take from this, even though it was a decent game, my take out of all of this is the NFL. Please stop making. I could see you putting Patriots on Monday night. Please stop putting these horrible teams on these primetime games. Like, I don't want to watch the Jets. Like, I don't want to watch it. Even if
what did I tell you last week? What did I tell you last week on the show? We can go back and rewind last week's show when the Giants was on Monday Night Football. The New York market.
I don't want to watch the Giants.
You're right, but unfortunately, because of the New York market, they make us watch these eyesores of a football game.
No, they need to stop right now. Like, please stop playing these teams that are terrible, that nobody wants to watch other than the people that support them. Like, nobody wants to watch the Giants.
Even the Jets don't want to watch. The Giants fans don't even watch that.
Yeah, nobody wants to watch that. The Cowboys, nobody want to watch the Cowboys, even when Dak is there.
Here come Thanksgiving. You already know. Thanksgiving, we got to watch the Lions and the Cowboys. Oh, my God.
I don't want to watch. Like, let's find some new teams to play on Thanksgiving.
Please.
I don't want to watch.
But look, that's the thing about, and I don't want to get off topic, but that's the thing about America. America love traditions, but when they look at traditions, they be like, you know what? Some of the stuff we did in these traditions are not that good, and they suck. Maybe we should change some things up. Nah, you know what? Nah, let's go ahead and go with the old way. That's what we're talking about right now. That's literally what we're talking about right now.
Gone. It needs to be gone because the one thing I got from that game last night was why am I watching the Jets play on Monday night? Like who, when they were making the schedule, were like, you know what the people want to see? Let's put the Jets on Monday night. Like nobody want to watch the Jets on Monday night.
Man.
So from now on, please NFL, please don't subject us to that nonsense ever again. Like oh my.
I'll say this: I've had a lot of people ask me why don't NFL games flex games into a Monday night slide or something like that. I agree, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But I'll say it won't. But I'll say this: if the NFL is smart, which I know they are, but business wise, you gotta understand and realize that maybe if we put the Cardinals and Dolphins on Monday night, or the Bills and Seahawks on Monday night, or whatever, we might see a better showing than this. We can still flex it. People's game plans might get messed up a little bit, but at the end of the day, it's about business, right? It's about putting on a show for the people that's watching it, correct? So
yeah.
All I'm saying is you kind of want to put a little bit of a better showing. All right, to wrap up this episode, let's hurry up and talk about the AFC and NFC playoff seedings at the moment. Right now, the Steelers are number 1, the Chiefs number 2, the Bills 3, Titans 4, Ravens 5, Raiders 6, and the Dolphins are sitting at that number 7 slot.
The Raiders and the Dolphins not so much because the Dolphins kind of been playing well. The Raiders are kind of surprised because they're so up and down. But they have, I guess, they've won games when they needed to win games. They were able to beat the Chiefs, so it's going to be interesting to see. The Dolphins, I only kind of feel sorry for them because if the Dolphins stay in that 7th spot, they got to play the Chiefs the first week of the playoffs. And
yep.
We know how that's going to go.
Well, do we though? We don't know. We got to wait and play the game, baby.
We know how that
We don't know.
We know. Anyway, it's going to be interesting to see if the standings stay like this. I do think those last 3 teams could find a way to stay in the standings. So I do think we could be looking at Ravens, Raiders, Dolphins as it goes, except for potentially it could be a switch at 7-3 where the Dolphins somehow find a way to get past the Bills in the AFC East, and you got the Dolphins sitting at number 3 or 4, and then you got
the Bills at 7 or 6, depending on how they record is.
It's going to be interesting because the Bills. I think it's important to get a home game. I think for the Bills, we saw what happened last year when they had to come to Houston and they ended up losing that game, which they should have won.
Yeah.
I think it's important for them to get that home game. You got to win the division, get a home game. That way, you get Josh Allen playing in Buffalo for that first playoff game, and I think you probably pull out a win in that way. But if you end up on the road, I don't like it.
It's gonna be hard. All right, NFC playoff seedings at the moment: number 1 Saints, number 2 Seahawks, number 3 Packers, 4 Eagles, 5 Buccaneers, 6 Cardinals, and 7 Rams. Just like we talked about before with the AFC East division, that could switch to where the Seahawks are in 6th or 7th place. This is a whole NFC conference that can be changed week by week. Just last week, the Buccaneers were number 1 in the NFC. 1 loss, all of a sudden now it's the Saints. Buccaneers dropped down to number 5, and like we talk about with NFL all the time, it's a week by week basis type of league. So again, we're at the midway point, week 13, week 14. That's when we really figure out all these teams.
Yeah, we'll really see around there. The number 4 seed, I mean, it could be any of the 4 terrible teams from that division. Yeah. So who knows who's sitting there? I will go out and say now the Eagles are going to be the team representing them, only because I feel like they have the most to offer as a team right now. But really, whoever's sitting at number 4, I mean, it's almost like a bye week for any of these teams that are sitting behind them. I mean, the Bucks, honestly, who's going to pick the Eagles over the Bucks? Nobody. Who's going to pick the Eagles over the Cardinals? I don't think anybody's doing that. The Rams, maybe possibly somebody might pick the Eagles over the Rams. But even with the Rams, I think the Rams can also beat the Eagles. So all three teams sitting behind them, I think, beat them anyway. So
No, I definitely agree, and it's just one of those things where, like we talk about all season, all during this episode long, is time will tell. We just
Yep.
have to wait and see how everything pans out. Again, especially after Thanksgiving, that's when things really start panning out to see who are contenders and who really are pretenders.
Yes, sir.
And with that being said, that'll do it for week 9 of our weekly wrap up. Please join us next week with week 10. And before we get up out of here, I just want to give a big thanks to everybody that is out here watching, listening on the podcast, and supporting myself and also Ishmael with the Sports Plug, with Kim Folk and them, with everything that we do. I just want to give a big shout out to everybody from Georgia to Michigan, all overseas. I have people listening overseas as well.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it, man.
Thank
We
you. Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Like I said, we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.